Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. My track guide for the Toyota GR86 going around Monza Grand Prix. Let's get into it. The straight is fairly long, so keep in mind when racing that draft will play a part. And of course, turn 1 is a great place to try and overtake, especially if you can get on the inside of the car in front of you. But when qualifying, you want to be all the way on the left side of the track, as close to the white line as you dare. My braking marker for turn 1 is the end of the bush here on the left. And once I start to brake, I aim for 80% brake pressure, and we are trailing that off all the way to the first curb. We're going to go all the way up on the first curb as well. Just make sure to have one set of wheels on the white line. Once we leave this curb, we want to start to accelerate again. We want to ease it in just a little bit because we are going to turn in for turn 2. Get as close as we can to the anti-cut without hitting it, and once I'm past the anti-cut sausage, I'll go full throttle again. Of course, utilize all of the available room on the outside without hitting the gravel. We want to drive as few meters as possible, so stay really close to the white line on the right side of the track. If you get a bad exit out of turn 2, turn 4 is going to be a place where people will try and overtake you, so keep that in mind when racing. But of course, with qualifying, we want to be all the way on the right side of the track, being as close as we can to the grass without hitting it. For turn 4, we want to be using the 100 board here on the right as our braking marker. And again, I'm aiming for just about 80% brake pressure, and we're trailing that off all the way to the first curb. And again, we're cutting the curb quite aggressively, making sure we have one set of wheels on the green and white and red curbing. As we get to the curb, we start to accelerate again. We can take a little bit of the inside curb of turn 5. It is better to not hit it because it will untilt the car and spit you out on the left side of the track and maybe into the gravel. We want to stay here on the left side of the track. For turn 6, we want to turn in once we get to this orange part here on the right. And I hold a few percent of brake pressure to make sure we get into the curb. We want to get early on the throttle with this corner, and I go on the throttle just before the emergency exit here on the right, which is also our apex point. Then we want to let the car walk out to the left side of the track, utilizing all of the room on the outside. For turn 7, it's all about getting a good exit. We brake here at the 50 board, I aim for about 40% brake pressure, and I'm trailing that off all the way to the inside curb. Once we get to the curb, we start to apply the throttle again, and of course we're cutting this curb as well. Just make sure to utilize all of the available room here on the outside to make sure you get as high of an exit speed as possible. Now we want to drive the fewest meters possible again. That means staying close to the white line here on the left before getting over to the right side of the track before turn 8. This part of the track is also a place where people will try and overtake you just because it's so long, so keep that in mind when racing. But again, for qualifying, we want to stay on the right side of the track as close to the white line as we can, and we want to be braking at the 100 board here on the right. I'm aiming for 80% brake pressure, and I'm trailing that off all the way to the first curb. Once I get to the first curb, I want to start to accelerate again, cutting a little bit off the first curb and going to 100% throttle after I land. Then we want to get as close as we can to the anti-cuts without hitting them, still being smooth with the steering inputs to make sure we don't scrub off any speed, and being flat out all the way through. And on the exit, we just use the room we need, we don't have to take all of it. And now it's a long straight again down to turn 11. Here people might try and overtake you as well if they can, especially here because it will be the last corner for this lap. But when qualifying, we want to stay on the left side of the track. And when qualifying, we want to set up turn 11 for a good exit as we're going onto a straight once again. I brake once I get to the end of the AstroTurf here on the left. I aim for about 75% brake pressure, and I'm trailing that off all the way to the balcony on the right side of the track. Once I get to the balcony, I start to accelerate again, easing it in just a little bit to make sure we don't understeer off. The farthest I aim to go is about mid-track. If we're going any further than mid-track, we're traveling too many meters. That will hurt your lap time quite a lot. We still want to drive the fewest meters possible, so we want to get back to the white line before the pit. And of course maintaining going the shortest distance all the way up to the start-finish line. And that's a lap around Monza in the Toyota GR86 of a time of 2 minutes 12.1. Hopefully you found this one useful. If you did, leave a like down below, consider subscribing as well, and now for the uninterrupted hot laps.